So,
Yay.
hello, everyone, and welcome to Projectkin's weekly Substack Live. I'm always delighted to do these, and especially to welcome our very special guests. Hello, Dr. Mary Marshall. You know, all of you. Hello, Linda. Don't worry, Kathy Stone is coming back on her way home right now. To Calgary. Hello. So, as you can see, welcome, Julianne. It's delightful to have you join us today on the road right now between Edmonton and Calgary is our one and only, hello, Cynthia, our one and only Kathy Stone, who joins us with a pixelated image,
Hello.
but that's okay. I'm going to turn it over to you just in case a thunderstorm hits and we go off the air from the road. Go ahead, please, Kathy.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Good to see you all. And as Barbara said, I'm returning home after a quick trip to Edmonton, Alberta. So I'm on what's called the Queen Elizabeth II Highway that joins our two cities. And I've been up for the weekend and in my hometown where I was born. And so stories and reminiscing and all that is right at the top of my mind today. We had breakfast today in a little diner that's it was about 2 blocks from where I grew up. It used to be a hardware store, this little tiny mall that was visited a lot, but we had a great breakfast there, and now we're just heading home. And so I'm coming to you from the highway. Hopefully the internet will stay stable for us, and we can keep going.
Well, storytelling is what we're all here for, isn't it? I just noticed that the
Mhm.
mighty DJ has joined us with keep thing uh keep keepers. I'm sorry. I'll follow up all of the Substack names right and proper after this because I circulate all of these as recordings. And frankly, I always see that as an important part of it because I do my best to keep up
Yes.
the links to all of the things that we mention as we go forward. And Anne Larkham is in the building. Our very
Hi,
own
Anne. Just
photogenealogy is here.
I'm just going to give you a little look at where I am. So you can just see a little corner of Canada here where we're driving. I'm not going to leave that on too long. I don't want to make you sick, but we've just hit another rainstorm. So we'll be there. There, we're back. So
And
just a little bit of all that nice green territory we're driving through right now. So,
I want to reassure everyone joining from the UK and Australia, New Zealand, that this is America, Canada,
yeah,
where we drive
not
on the
driving.
other side of the road. She is not driving, and I have Kathy's assurances that if the rain gets too strong, they're going to pull over.
Yes.
So, safety
So,
first. So, Kathy, I'd ask you here today to tell us a little bit about this week's Kathy's Corner. What do you have planned for us?
well, I was thinking we've spent the last 4 sessions talking about how to identify our mystery photos and gone through a lot of things about what tools and techniques we can use. But what I find too is we often have mystery artifacts that um, things have stories behind them. And I think it's one of the areas, even when we get digging through our photos and other memorabilia, that often we ignore the physical objects that are probably a danger too of people getting rid of when no one's left to tell the story behind them. So I thought we'd talk a bit about that with some things that I have in my collection that I'm trying to think about. And I thought we would. You're getting to listen to a good old Alberta rainstorm right now. I thought we'd focus on military artifacts this week, although it'll be applicable to any kind of artifact. But I thought we'd focus on the military stuff because it was last week was 80 years since VE Day, and in the U.S. they're coming up on Memorial Day. Um, so I thought it seemed like appropriate to talk a bit about military stuff. So that's what I'm thinking will do is talk. We're on a curve now. I'm gonna get myself straight in here. I thought we talk about military things. And I've got some military things where I know I have stories, and we're going to talk about what are the stories that people told us, and is there some way where we can verify those stories and maybe expand on them and tell a little bit of the background. And I think many of you have seen before, because I've shown this a few times, is my ship in a bottle. and I have a ship in a bottle that has my mother's name on the ship, and it's literally a little tiny ship in an old liniment bottle. And it was made by my grandfather was a guard at prisoner of war camp in the mountains of just west of Calgary. And the prisoners made crafts there because they were a lot of them were Rommel's troops. And in the middle of the mountains in the 1940s, not a whole lot of people tried to escape because there was no
They knew
literally
better.
nowhere to go. You'd been taken to a whole different continent, so it was sort of like, well, I don't think you're really going to worry too much about trying to escape. Usually, if people did manage to escape, they'd be gone for a day or two and then come back and go, yeah, okay, please, we can I come
Please
back and
take me
get,
back.
please put me back in here. So it's so that's one of the things I have with the story that but I'm trying to confirm that these stories that I was told are in fact
Yeah,
the truth. And we
yeah,
have
yeah,
things that were things from World War I, and so we're going to look at a few of those things. And I'm going to do a little investigating this week, and just to try and figure out what if I can confirm some of the stories of what we think these objects
yeah.
were, and how that'll all shake out for us. So
I think photographs of family members in military outfits, in uniforms, the various medals and awards and so on, are unique items in family storytelling. I think for two reasons. One is I think there's a tremendous pressure to
yeah,
make every story be heroic. And
yeah,
let's face it, not every story really is heroic.
hmm,
And second, that because of the nature of military structure and uniforms, and even the very specific periods of time that are documented when someone was in service, those kinds of things can create a timeline for family history that we can learn from and see. I noticed, for example, a few minutes ago, welcome Lori, Jim, Jane, welcome, and Christopher. In Lori Olson White has a most marvelous post, if you haven't seen it, where she talks about an artifact that was not military. In this case, it was a precious figurine of a ceramic figurine of her grandmother's that, in fact, did break. So the
yeah,
story, those kinds of stories, it's not just the object, but even the absence of the object or the damage to an object that creates its own story that can be so compelling to where someone is at a point in time. And let's face it, it's like fables. It's values that are conveyed by these stories as to who a family is. And Jane, you can't read this from there, Kathy, while driving, but I will read it for you. Jane Chapman chimes in from New Zealand to say, I want to congratulate Kathy for talking on Zoom while driving at the same time. You missed this, Jane, coming in from New Zealand, but I'm here to tell you in Canada, it's the other side of the road. So it's
oh,
okay. Her
yeah.
lovely
I'm
husband
just a
is driving.
passenger, so and we're actually stopped now, so I'm no longer moving.
Whew. Okay, is it raining? You pulled over because of the rain?
It's raining, but it's no. We're pulled over because we're at the favorite burger place. My friend Linda from Calgary will know very well. Peter's Drive-In. It's a legendary burger place that's been in Calgary forever, and they've now put one on the highway in between. So the boys in the car need hamburgers. So
Okay.
we've stopped at Peter's Drive-In, and the timing is perfect. So I can just sit and not have to bounce around. But
Okay, well,
yeah,
I feel
so
better. They might even
yes,
have a little Wi-Fi there. Probably
exactly.
not though.
Yes.
Probably not though.
Oh,
And you
no.
get a burger. I hope they're bringing you something too, right? And certainly a
Yeah, I'm
French
not.
fry
I'm
tax.
probably. They have really good milkshakes. I might stick with a
Ah,
milkshake. But
okay.
yes,
Just
so
want to make sure you're taken
make
care
sure
of.
I'm taken care of. Yeah.
Exactly.
So
So Lori's just chimed in to add, in addition, that even as an object is damaged, an object is lost, and another unit of it has been found, it becomes part of the ongoing story. And I think that more than anything describes how um, you know, s- these stories compound.
yeah,
We are mere guardians of these materials
yeah.
and what we do in passing them on. And in fact, as you've said many times, um, I'm fighting the sun here. I'll be honest. um, as you've said many times, photographs themselves are artifacts. I
Yeah.
know, and Larka will probably recognize this one as well. I have this photograph that I've talked about in the past,
Yes.
which was in my collection, and it's in a classic little case for a
Hmm.
daguerreotype, which is charming and all, and it just sort of came in the box of stuff. I now know who this is, but the curiosity about this photograph is those of you who know daguerreotypes will recognize that's not a daguerreotype. It's in a case, but it isn't. I believe the original was in this same case. Actually, no, no, it isn't. I have the original elsewhere, but my grandfather, probably in the 1950s, which is a year or two ago, they had a wet lab and was able to make photographic prints. He made a photographic copy and put it into the case. So now that becomes part of the story. And in fact, this is only
Hmm.
half of the case. I hadn't ever thought about that, putting the two pieces together.
Yeah.
This is how they all go. Maybe it's a tin type, and you might think that it's a tin type, Mary, because you can still see it. In front of me, I can see from the from looking at it, and that it is in fact a print. This what I'm looking at right here is a print, and in fact, on this view, as opposed to my usual events
Yes.
view, you can see my background photos. There's one in an oval, and it's the same person. It's the same photo, I think. Yeah,
Yeah, we can
it's the
see it.
same
Yep.
it's the same photo. That's also a print from the 1950s, I think.
Yes.
But
But
they then
in a
become
in a way, it's
artifacts.
kind of good that he did that, though,
Yeah.
because the prints, like I have a one of the family's collections I'm working on. At some point, someone took apart what we think was a tintype, we don't know, and then either took a picture of it or possibly it wouldn't have scanned it because it's like this. It's sometime like a long time ago, but we're now having really a great deal of difficulty doing much with that photo that was taken as a photograph because it wasn't properly scanned and developed from the tintype or whatever it originally was. So it's really tough to edit because you get so much reflection off it
Right.
that the editing becomes almost impossible. So and I finally dawned on me, we've been trying to edit it forever, and I went, oh, you know what? That picture with the age, it has to have been not. It was never a print. It's original. It was a either a daguerreotype from the date the lady depicted it is from, or a tintype, and that's why we have nothing there to work with from this because we're working with a
Mm,
bad image to begin with. So
right, right.
it's
A
kind of part of that whole.
photograph. Yeah, I mean, a photograph, I think my key point here is that a photograph is an artifact. It's not a
Yes.
metal or a statue. It
Yeah.
is a piece of paper or
Yeah.
tin, but it is in fact an artifact that has its own characteristics as you
Yeah.
carry it on. And yes, as Anne Larkham points out, it is better to display prints than originals in a room like this. All of those prints
Absolutely.
back
Yeah.
behind me are all getting a lot of sun, and you can see sun damage on
Hmm.
everything from skin
Yeah.
to photographs always show that damage. And Dr. Mary Marshall talks about having had hers professionally scanned and a film made. In
Yeah.
fact, see the color one behind me right there, that
Yeah.
one is a lantern photo also taken by my
Yeah.
grandfather in color. And so yes, and don't worry, these are, except for the modern ones, all copies of the originals so that the
Yeah.
originals are protected. It was terrifying to me to, I have to confess, pretty recently discover how much sun damage had been done to some of my
Yeah.
originals. And each one of those,
Yeah.
we are mere guardians, right?
Exactly. And in fact, our digitization becomes another artifact, a digital
That's right.
artifact.
That's right. And an enlarger and a camera in 1954 is a scanning step. It's just an
Yeah.
analog scanning step.
And we've
Um,
gone back to that kind of scanning now with cameras.
Although digitally, you're still using a
Digitally,
digital
yeah.
camera.
Not taking a photo of it, like a printed
Well,
photo,
taking a,
but yes.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
subtle details as we muck with what we're doing. So, Kathy, tell us a little bit. You got some other fun stuff coming, don't you?
I do. Is that a hint?
That's a hint. How about
We're
a
gonna
little
have
hint?
another lot. We're Barbara and I are gonna do a live next Sunday again, which is unusual because we usually do mine right before Kathy's Corner, and we're not having another Kathy's Corner. But I do have an announcement to make, and Barbara's gonna help me announce that about something new coming to you on Substack
There we go.
next week. Yes.
So
So
I do these Substack lives once a week, whether you need them or not, unless I decide that I'm not, because it's Mother's Day.
yes.
And my whole point is to be able to highlight special things happening in the community. And of course, I have a little
Mm,
self interest in events that are happening in Projectkin, but I'm always delighted to celebrate events going on in our community. So that's also, thank you, Anne. Anne gives you a little drum roll.
oh, perfect.
um,
Yes.
I am always excited about celebrating things and highlighting work being done and bringing along special guests to this community. And I hope showing all of you what can be done with Substack Live, which I have seen work very, very well in terms of spreading ideas. Sometimes I look at what we're doing here a little bit like the TED Talks in the sense of
Hmm.
it's we're not selling anything, just trying to get ideas to spread. My self interest is to encourage every family to get their stories told in any form because we have so many ways to do that today that we never had possible before.
Before, yeah. And I
And
think that's something that from this weekend is because I've been listening, when you gather for I was at a memorial yesterday. When you gather in such circumstances, then afterwards a lot of stories come out about where people are just saying, and I'm meeting people on my sister or my cousin's wife's side of the family I've never met before, and my niece is with me going, oh yeah, like my my mom, her mom just loved my mom. Like they just were two women raising their kids by themselves that were two really strong women, and that's what I said. They just said what they thought. And her brother says, "Yeah, that was my sister. She had never had to pry too much to figure out what she thought." But even the stories coming out about when people were kids and all those stories, it's just I'm gonna go home tonight and start and write a few down that I've forgotten, and I think that so yeah, a trip to your hometown is probably good for get those memories out too.
And
So
so you really have two compounded triggers to
mhm.
family storytelling. One, just being in the presence of your hometown. And
Yeah,
two is a gathering, a memorial gathering. I'm going to one at the end of May. Also, my husband's classmate. And these are always very sad occasions,
mhm.
but we will be remembered. We know how the movie ends, but we will be
Yeah,
remembered. And that's really what we're all about. So finding ways to capture those stories.
mhm.
It doesn't have to be invasive, intrusive video or, things like that. On the other hand, having artifacts around that trigger stories is is really compelling. In fact, I've been giving some thought to the larger question of gatherings. I'm reading a lovely book. I'll put a reference in called "The Art of Gathering." Many of you, it's a
Mhm.
widely known
Yeah,
book, and it's told from the perspective of a facilitator, professional facilitator for meetings and gatherings and negotiations and whatnot. And I have already found it really compelling to think about, almost in an anthropological perspective, to really think about what is the purpose of a
yeah,
gathering? What are you doing? And when we tell a story in a family, in many ways, it has a purpose. There is
mhm.
not just these facts happen. You could have had those facts conveyed in a list, but it is a narrative that sinks in and conveys an idea that can just, grab at the heart.
Yeah,
And family stories that are the ones that we want to bubble up and tell come from that
yes,
same place.
yeah.
So
Well, and
too
it's
with
interesting
birthdays
too
and
with technology and things is so they had found somewhere a little video clip from quite a few years ago of my cousin's first wife, the one that had passed, of her singing along to a Cher song at a party. And it was like it was the levity of it, but
okay.
to hear her voice. That is so important, and it was like, that was Lisa right there. That was, she was the one who would be belting out a tune before karaoke was a thing, and it just having that memory and that artifact, in fact, is what it is,
That's
was
right.
just special. It's part of that whole thing we talk about. Then, we should record stories too, not just type them out on paper, but to pass on our voices and stories in our own words, I think is a really a valuable lesson too, to keep in
Yeah.
mind that hearing somebody's voice that's gone is
Yeah.
just special. So,
It's very special. Before my mom passed, I used to routinely, she was declining from dementia, and I would take her for rides, which she loved. And I think one of the reasons she loved it was because nobody was asking her to
yeah.
answer questions and come out with
Hmm.
complete sentences, which was very hard for her. So I would just chatter on about my day. I could fill the air. And and then she would pop in every now and then. She had a few certain phrases she'd just repeat over and over again.
Yeah.
Not a cloud in the sky. That's one of her signature phrases.
Yeah.
And at one time, I just sort of surreptitiously flipped my phone to on recording, and so you hear the sound of my car driving, and not a cloud in the sky. It's like, oh yes, there's the moment.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
moment, and it's captured, and you've got it to remember, and
yeah. So
and
don't
it can be
let
that little bit that gets passed on too.
Right. And in all cases, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. This was not studio.
Yep.
This was not anything fancy. In fact, it's the noise. And in many ways, the noise is what brings it that authenticity. It's that moment that you know exactly where it is. Just as this is alive as you're sitting in a parking lot waiting
Yep,
for that,
sitting in my
wait,
parking lot.
waiting for your ice cream,
Yes.
yeah, and taking it forward. Kyla, saw you come in. Jill, welcome, welcome, right across the border to Canada. um each of us, as we tell our own often intimate, authentic, compelling stories that we may be writing to share with our own family members, but have found this little circle of friends. I feel like we get to know each other really well, and there's something kind of special
Mhm.
happening, connecting in that way. There's a universality of these um, feelings, of this, and the facts and the experiences as we take it forward. Welcome in, and go forward and discover new people that we didn't know shared the same experiences, shared the same environments. It's a pretty cool thing.
Very
So
cool.
I want
So,
to
and I
thank
just
you.
want
Mhm.
yeah, I just wanna remind, I can't remember if I said this or not, 'cause it's a little distracting around me. If you've got a military artifact and you wanna talk about it on Kathy's Corner on, Thursday, bring it along, even if it's a mystery, and maybe we can use the wisdom of the crowd to, get some idea of how we can figure out what it might be, and where you could find some resources to figure it out, and just and we'll talk. We could talk about all artifacts too, because, like I said, we're doing this. I decided I'd focus on military because some of the things I have in my collection, quite a few of them were things from my grandfather's years of service in both the Royal British Navy and the Canadian Veterans Guard. So, but anybody with some things to share and little puzzles you have, we might be able to figure them out. So,
Yeah. There's an extraordinary wealth of knowledge about all sorts of different
mhm.
channels of military experience, of insight about artifacts that is resident here in Substack. And I'd be delighted to have some of those shared in these special moments. Again, that's on Thursday, May 22nd, where we have our monthly Kathy's Corner focusing on military artifacts, for this in recognition and appreciation for the coming, well, really the anniversaries of events from the landing at D-Day in May to the uh, Victory in Europe Day in June, and signing of the end of World War II in later in September in the Pacific. These are all commemorative moments, but all of us as families have the artifacts of our loved ones that went through this. Last year, during the Memorial Day week, I had a program at the time called Members Corner. This was before Substack allowed you to publish without a publication. And I invited members to publish articles that month. I encouraged articles about
Mhm.
military experiences, and I'll be reposting some of those. I also welcome any and all of you to send me articles, to send me a link to articles that you think are reinforce that story. And as I can, I will include them in a post that I have planned talking about that, because I think there's something so central to family members who have given their lives to a cause. And as
And
much
I think you said
as
at the beginning too, and not everyone's stories were heroes, and not everybody was a hero, and a lot of them were just regular people getting by, and a lot of the stories don't have happy endings, and that's
yes,
part of
yeah.
telling the story.
As a matter of fact, I'm glad you mentioned that. We have also on, she says, looking for a calendar, first week of June.
Yes.
I have asked Jennifer Holick, who many of
Hmm.
you will know for her extraordinary work on military experiences, to do a program for Projectkin that will be talking not only about those how to talk to someone about their military experience, but also how to heal, how that can be a
Yeah.
healing conversation to carry forward. And I think that's really a compelling component of all of this, and kind of the whole point of Memorial Day, Memorial Week, in all of the different forms,
Hmm.
and appreciation and respect for what family members have done in service of their countries, of their communities, and other groups that selfless acts. So with that, let me say thank you so much. Did you get your
Good
milkshake?
to see you. Not yet. I'm about to get it though. I'm ready,
Okay.
and we're ready to
Send
get
it
back on the road. So perfect
send it back
timing.
for it. There you go. Okay. So get out there, stay safe, stay dry. Thank you, family members. Steve, is it? And Bob, thank you so much for
Yeah,
being.
Bob's driving now. Bob's going to drive now. So
Okay. I thought maybe Bob aged a lot in the back seat. I was a little worried.
yeah.
Grew up. Excuse me. Excuse me, Steve. Grew up.
All
Thank you.
right.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming,
Appreciate
everybody.
it.
We'll see you Thursday.
See you
Bye bye.
then. Bye bye now.